Automated Database Object Model, ADOM, ID Factory and SQL Server Demo. In order to demonstrate the power of the ADOM framework, we have created a test database named testdbo1. This database contains a simple person data structure as shown in the database diagram. As you can see, the person structure contains a person, address, phone, and email, as well as relational tables and type tables where associated. As you can see, all we have are the tables listed in the diagram and one single store procedure that simply selects the data to show you what's in the database currently. We have inserted over 100,000 records in this database so that you can get a feel for the performance of the ADOM framework. Here you can see we have 100,000 person records, 203,000 addresses, 100,000 emails, and 100,000 phone numbers. This is a join between all the tables so that you can see the data that's there. The ADOM framework automates most of the development effort required to manage a SQL relational database. All the DBA has to do is create the initial tables and their foreign key relationships, and ADOM does the rest for you. We're going to open the ID Factory tool and we're going to select the DBO1 database and atomize it for the first time. This will add several tables and a couple of functions to the list of database objects. We're going to refresh the table list. Now you can see all of the ADOM tables. They'll start with ADOM prefix. Still in the store procedure list, there's nothing. Now we're going to pull up the ID Factory tool again, refresh the data, go to the table settings. This is where you actually configure most of the ADOM framework. So here we're going to select all of these tables as primary tables, which will add them to the object structure. We're going to generate an attribute select for the person. You'll see what that is later. And a generic search for the person. We'll do a generate select all for the to type list to populate drop downs in the UI. Now we will re-atomize for the second time, and this will take a little bit longer to complete. But now you will see that we have a ton of additional store procedures which have been created by the framework. These store procedures are where all the power in the ADOM framework actually resides. The ADOM framework creates a powerful set of extremely efficient store procedures which can render the relational table data in a hierarchical XML object structure. The first store procedure that we're going to look at is called the attribute select, and this is for the person object. We'll give you a little more information on what that store procedure output's actually used for later, but this is the best way to see the overall structure generated by the store procedures. As you can see, this XML structure contains a lot of metadata. That metadata is only really persistent in the attribute select. Now we're going to execute the generic search for a person, passing in an ID. And what this is going to do is return that same hierarchical structure, but with the actual data instead of metadata. The ADOM framework creates a single point of entry store procedure that handles all inserts, updates, and deletes. This store procedure is the most powerful part of the framework because it interrogates the incoming XML object and then calls other store procedures to do the updates on the individual relational tables. Now we're going to show you an example of the XML selector, which is the store procedure that handles inserts, updates, and deletes. We have to replace the @doc parameter with the actual value of the XML object, which would be coming in from the application layer. So we're going to take the XML that was output from our previous store procedure execute, and we're going to paste that into the XML selector document. Now we will make some modifications to the data so that we can see the actual update and insert process. We're going to change the name, and we're going to change the modify type ID to 2. 0 is no change, 1 is insert, 2 is update, 3 is delete. Modify type ID controls everything about the update process. And we're going to show an example of inserting a new email. You have to change the ID to 0 and the modify type ID to 1. 1 is insert. We'll execute this, and you see how quickly that executed in sub-second time. It made the updates and returned the data as persisted in the database to the calling store procedure. So now we're going to paste that same output that we just got back from the update into our XML selector store procedure. Execute. And we'll go back up and we will delete the second email that we just added. Again, it happens instantly. The new record shows that the email that we added in the last step has been deleted and the name is updated. Remember, this all happened instantly. The ADOM Framework is the most efficient way to process data. The ADOM Framework also includes a component which generates a class structure to hold the data returned by the store procedures so that it can be used in a myriad of different coding techniques. However, all of the true object relational mapping still occurs at the database level, not the middle tier. We're going to execute the attribute select person store procedure again. This time I'll show you what all that metadata is used for. So we're going to copy the output from that store procedure, execute. Then we're going to go over into our Visual Studio project. We're going to select our add-in for the class generator, paste in the output from the attribute select, and generate our classes. As you can see, the classes all pop up in a model folder, and we have classes for all of our data types contained within our object structure as returned by the XML store procedures. These classes are all created in partial classes, so therefore they allow the greatest flexibility for extensibility. But again, you need to remember these classes are only there to extend the programming use of the ADOM Framework. The ADOM Framework also includes a component which generates a custom store procedure or special select, which returns data based on what is checked in an object checkbox tree in the ID Factory interface. So now we're going to open up the ID Factory interface again and go to Special Selects. We're going to select the table that we want to create the special select for. In this instance, it's a person. The entire structure of the person object is rendered in a checkbox tree. You simply check the items that you wish the store procedure to return, give it a name, and then save that store procedure. The special selects are typically used for large lists of items where you don't want to expose the entire object because it's too large. For instance, to be used in like search results that are going to populate a grid, you don't want all of the data behind the objects if you're only going to use 4 or 5 labels in your grid. These objects can get rather large depending on your schema structure and the amount of data that you have, so therefore you don't want to return the entire object for grid search results. Let's refresh our store procedures, and now you can see the new store procedure that I just created in the previous step. And you can also see that it's only going to return a small portion of the object structure. So let's execute that for the ID that we used in the previous exercise. That data is now returned, and as you can see, all we have is name, date of birth, and city. The ADOM Framework also includes a component of the ID Factory interface which acts as a search controller for the other XML queries. The controller store procedure can call multiple search filter queries before it passes their search results off to the XML Sprock for selection. We're going to open the ID Factory tool again and create a select procedure. What this is going to do is generate a controller Sprock and one-to-many search store procedures. This is another example of highly tuned, efficient store procedure processing that has been created via the ADOM Framework. As I said before, all of the major power within the ADOM framework is in the stored procedures. There are no transposing or mapping of data elements within the middle tier at all. All of this is done within the stored procedures in the data tier itself. This is what gives the ADOM framework its distinct advantage over all other ORMs on the market today. You can use extremely efficient and secure stored procedure for all of your data access layer processing. In our example here, we're going to be searching by name, and we're going to use a parameter. We're going to evaluate that parameter with a like statement that's going to use wildcards on either end. The name of the parameter is person name. Accept and save. As you can see, the store procedure was created instantly. In our example, we could have continued on with filter statements to be used by the search, but for this demo purpose, we'll just use the one. We'll go back and refresh our store procedure lists and find that new store procedure. We'll execute the store procedure using a name John and space. We're using the space to prevent things like Johnson from catching in our search results. As you can see, the search results rendered in sub-second time, and we have our abbreviated person object structure that we created in the previous step for every John space found in the database. Remember, the thing that sets ADOM Framework apart from every other ORM are these powerful stored procedures.